All right. Hello. Chainsaw Man chapter 140 just dropped, and we are going to speak about it. This here is a quick drawing of the Church of Chainsaw Man. I don't know if you guys can recognize the dedication I put into this, but regardless, let's get into the chapter because there are a lot to talk about. Okay, so first of all, continuing off from last chapter is the Church of Chainsaw Man, which is literally the church with Denji's head on it. Um, and right off the bat, we get a confirmation on um, bu- 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 on Kobeni's this character's identity, which many people thought it was Kobeni's younger sibling because they look alike. That's how siblings usually work. And we know we get the confirmation because they share the same last name. Uh, they are both surnamed Higashiyama. So that's pretty much confirms that Kobeni is related to him. Uh, Another thing is that Kobeni's uniform is very similar to the female uniforms of Denji's school. So some people theorize that she also attended the high school that Denji went to. Only she's not here anymore because she is 20. And currently in the series, and since there's like a 1.5 year to 2 year time skip, she would either be 21 or 22. So unless she's been held back, 5 years, also she would not be present at the school. Uh, but anyways, Nobana, which is the supposed younger brother. Oh, before I go into the next part, another interesting thing is that when we first are introduced to Kobeni, right? She was said to have um 9 sisters or 8 sisters. Kobeni is one of 9 sisters, which is it's a bit strange to see that this is her brother. Or is he really? Because if she has, more than just sisters, you would think that I forgot her name. The senior devil hunter. She died like a chapter later. But anyways, you would think that she would be more, she would say like Kobeni has 9 siblings or 10, 11, 12 siblings instead of just 9 sisters. So right now my crackpot theory is that Nobana is actually a female sister for some reason is in disguise of a man. But let me put like a text. A boy, boy. So, and to take that line of thought even further, I would even go as far to say that Nobana was who they planned for Denji to have sex with had he gone through with the plan or the initiation of the initiation into the church. But yeah, anyways, moving on from the Kobeni bloodline, we learn a bit more about the church as Nobana guides us through it. So one of the themes of this chapter is that there are a lot of anti-American thoughts because in the real world Japan in the 90s, there was like an economic struggle between Japan and the United States, which is why, like, since the 80s, we've seen a lot of cyberpunk media, right? Like, if you watch like Blade Runner or other cyberpunk movies, shows, comics, you're gonna see like a lot of Japanese text and cultural influence in the futuristic American cities, and that's the result of them American writers fearing that Japan's going to take over the world economically in the future. And this is why Nobana and the other children kind of share a anti-American thought in this chapter, which we see in Nobana's he basically suggests that Americans are using 5G to make the brains of adults dumber. And it's kind of like conspiracy theories in real life, and that if you take some time to think about it, it doesn't really make sense. Because why would the 5G, American 5G radio waves affect the adults and not the young generation, right? So right away, we're kind of seeing the cracks of this church, and it truly is a cult in that they have a bunch of, you know, conspiracy beliefs. Let me screenshot this just panel just so we can have that for the America is bad theme that I might expand upon later. Ba, ba, ba. And then we are introduced to the Chainsaw Man Chapel, which is where the members of the Chainsaw Man cult gets married. And in the Church of Chainsaw Man, it's, as the previous chapter kind of suggested, it's going to be mostly younger people rather than the adults. So it's like another point of conflict between generations. And this statue, I'm trying to think of when this statue could have been based after, because this has to be one of earlier Denji fights, because he's wearing, pants. But I can't think of any like public instances where Denji is dressed like that. But regardless, we are. So when Sugo last chapter said that Denji gets to have sex with any girl he wants, it's not entirely truthful, because the idea of Denji having sex is, it's not with any girl he wants, it's with one girl of choice. He gets married, just like cults sometimes do. Because cults, so when you enter cults, they'll often make you get married at a young age for you to be easier to control. Which is why if you look at like testimonies from people that have escaped cults, one of the biggest barriers for them is that they have like wives, husbands, they have kids. So it's harder for them to just get up and leave the church when they have family members responsible to take care of. So marriage is used as a means of control in churches. Let me put that down on paper. And this kind of, so Denji immediately protests the idea of marriage because he's not ready to do that. He's a responsible young boy. He just wanna, get laid. And Nobana, he argues that marriage is a revolution against American systems. Marriage, the concept of marriage is an American idea. Or no, that's the opposite. The concept of like getting married only after you become an adult. That's the American idea. So here you have people that, you know, they idealize Chainsaw Man, but they don't really get what he wants. And in a lot of ways, that's very similar to what Makima did in part 1, where she has a lot of ideas of how Chainsaw Man should be, only to find out later that she's been fighting him the whole time. You know what? Let me pull back the text just so I can kind of keep the main points together. Let's see what's after that. So, Denji kind of pushes back on the idea of some of the church's mandates, and he gets into an argument with Sugo, who just kind of admits that they be making shit up. But he defends that by saying that even when they make stuff up, they are saving people's lives, so it's okay. And it's not. He claims that he's being logical, but it's not really. There's not really a correlation between getting married and saving lives. So, before this conversation can get any further, we are interrupted by the flamethrower man, who is this very sketchy-looking older man. And before I get into him specifically, we should get into what his name means. So he introduces himself as Barum. And Barum in French, or not in French, in Turkish, means scales. Which is the idea of this chapter and the ideas that, he presents to Denji in the end. Let me screenshot a translation in case you guys don't believe me, in case you guys think I'm a dirty liar, like Sugo was this chapter. So, right. And the title of this chapter is also Scales. And right away, as Barum appears, the mood kind of shifts. He brings some kind of crazy energy into this otherwise lighthearted chapter. Well, I wouldn't say the chapter is lighthearted, but comparatively, you can pretty much already tell this guy has very unhinged energy the moment he appeared. Even in part 1, amongst all the weapons devil that Makima controlled, this guy was extraordinarily sketchy to begin with. And so Barum, he right away. So Barum was the one that apparently asked Sugo to bring Denji to the church. But right away, he kind of just undo any work that Sugo has done by, you know, first he pokes Denji in the nose, which is not the most productive thing to do when you're trying to befriend someone. And then he tries to pick a fight with Denji. Because unlike Sugo, Berum, he's more interested in Pochita than he is in Denji. So he pokes Denji in the nose and then threatens to fight him. Well, Denji threatens him, but Berum welcomes it. And the chapter takes a more darker turn as of late, as Berum kind of ponders about how he can bring back Pochita. And to do that, he, threatens to kill Asa to bring back Pochita because he figures that, Denji's personal life is like a crutch against Denji becoming Chainsaw Man. And not just like Denji Chainsaw Man in the himself form. He wants the Pochita form. And then he compares Denji's personal life to scales. As one side, it's Denji's personal friendships, relationships, and his comfort everyday life versus the, just his desire to become Chainsaw Man. And that's the recurring idea throughout part 2, that Denji's juggling between being a regular person and becoming Chainsaw Man when he, the story so far kind of suggests that he needs to pick a side and stick with it. So, Berum, he comes in, threatens Denji, and then Denji naturally, figures that he shouldn't get involved with anyone from the church and runs away. So, and that's the end of the chapter, with Berum waving Denji goodbye and letting him leave with a threat. Right. So, right away, the motivation of the church, it's very confusing to me, right? Because there are a couple different contradictions to what the church is doing. Because the Fami and assuming like the rest of her student council, right? They want Denji to just not turn into Chainsaw Man ever again. Which is why they had Asa kind of go out there and take credit for his work. But then here you have Berum just coming in and very explicitly saying that he wants Denji to go away and to bring Pochita back. So the ideas, the goals of the church is very there are many different motivations for members of the church. I can't spell. Different goals for church members, because even between Sugo and Berum this chapter, we see that like their fundamental motivations are different, right? Berum wants Pochita while Sugo, he wants Denji. So it's two very different ideas for what they want to do. So let's talk about the church a little, because with how big the anti-American sentiments this chapter. It's it's kind of, obviously the church kind of reminds you of the modern day American megachurches and overly religious cults, right? But aside from just American churches, they may also be influenced by a couple different religious units from Japan. Because recently, Shinzo Abe, the former prime minister of Japan, he was assassinated. And so one of the reasons for, well, the primary reason for his assassination is that the assassins, he felt he had his family ruined by a church that Shinzo Abe is a part of, which is the Unification Church. And the Unification Church, they had influence in Japan, Korea, and some other countries. And they do very evil church stuff. They take a lot of donations. They forces the families into their religions, as well as have some very just straight up lying to their members about reasons for their worship. And it's a very politically charged unit. I believe there's actually some CIA funding for this church as well. And because of Shinzo Abe's assassination last year, there may be some prevalence on this church. Another one is the Om Shinrikyo, which has been renamed to the Aleph as of today, I believe. This is a church that is prominent in the 80s and 90s, and might be a bit more relevant because of that, as well as the fact that their ideas are apocalyptic ideas. And one place you might see this church from is if you played Yakuza 0. There was a side quest that you have to infiltrate a cult to rescue someone's daughter. And the cults kind of heavily utilize the idea of yoga, which we haven't seen in the Church of Chainsaw Man yet. So that's a screenshot from Yakuza 0. The Church of Chainsaw Man is probably just a mix and mash of multiple of these ideas. Let me grab a picture of a megachurch, because those are, I think overall the American megachurches are probably the most influential yet for the contents of this chapter, or in the contents of the church. Although I guess maybe it's not American megachurches explicitly, because there are, churches of such kind in Japan and Korea and the like, but I feel it might be American influence because of how, anti-American some of the characters are in this chapter. Ooh, I need some water. Oh. Alright, I drank water. I think that's about it for everything to go over this chapter. Maybe links to the SS1. Oh, I assume that's season 1, part 1, because they launched the Gun Devil. Yeah, that's a good point. The Americans, basically launched a big terrorist attack on the whole city. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. That's a good point. He's going to punch that guy. I wouldn't be surprised. They'll probably fight. Yeah, Denji's probably going to fight Barham again at some point. But yeah, anyways, Denji leaves the church. So Barham kind of just shows up and undoes everything Sugo has been working on. So it'll be a little delay before we see the other weapons devil, I assume. So we won't see Reze, we won't see Quan Chi, and we won't see the others. Unless, you know, they just pull up at Denji's house or wherever else he goes. Which might be a possibility, because I assume, well, you know what? From what we see of this chapter, it doesn't seem like they planned out the exacts of how they were going to integrate Denji into the church. Because I was going to say, if they did, you know, have prior conversations about this, they might have like Reze or someone to be Denji's wife. I guess we will never know. I think that's about it for everything to go over this chapter. Next chapter will come out the same time in a week. There's no break next week, which is pretty cool. So I guess I'll do another stream next week per usual. Before I end this, let me go over one more time to see if I missed anything, or if there's anything else I can talk about from the chapter. I think it's worth noting that this chapter is a bit longer than usual, in that it has slightly more pages. Well, not really, now that I'm counting. It's just more dialogue heavy than the previous couple. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, I guess that about covers it for this chapter. Alright, I guess that's it for the stream. I'll see y'all next week. Bye bye.